This is a clip from our R5 Q&A stream with Mehdia from Canon. This was the day after the R5 launched, and we had a Q&A stream going over customer questions. So we got straight to the point, asked Mehdia about overheating, what modes overheated, what modes didn't, and what impact we thought it would have on using the R5 as a professional video tool. This is something that I've seen so much misinformation about. But it's not something that I think should be swept under the rug at all. This is in some modes, the R5 overheats. There are modes of the R5 where you are not going to shoot in those modes all day for professional work. You're just not, because of the overheating issues is going to stop that. I've seen lots of things out there though, saying that this rules the camera off for professional work, which I just could not disagree more with.
Yeah,
There are so many modes here that are, this is still a better camera, even with those overheating issues. There's the modes that don't overheat is still a better camera in terms of mirrorless cameras for video than potentially anything else out there on the market. It certainly gives everything else a good run for its money. So, Mehdia.
Yes.
Which modes on the R5, and we'll talk about the R5 first, then the R6. Which modes on the R5 overheat?
So we're looking at if you record in 8K, both in RAW or in MP4, there is the 20 minutes that basically we are quoting. So up to 20 minutes, I mean, you might get 19 minutes, for example, you might get 21 minutes. Because sometimes the more tests we do, we'll find different figures. But that's a kind of a guide number. If you look at it, you know what you're expecting. If the minute you start recording RAW or you go into 8K DCI and you're recording, you know what to expect. You do get a warning on the screen roughly about 3 minutes before that the camera basically is gonna shut off. You do get that warning, and you don't lose your footage. So obviously that's not an issue. But as I said, we are looking at a very small camera. That's actually doing quite a lot.
On that note, I went back and remembered the 8K. Do you remember, Mehdia, that you guys at trade shows for a while were showing off an 8K camera solution? And it was essentially a C300 Mark II that was heavily modified with big recorders on the back and all the rest of it. I think I've got a photo of it. Dan, can you bring up my laptop screen? So this is the 8K solution that you guys have been showing off for a couple of years now. And that's what 8K looks like in a video production world normally. So I just thought that was a really interesting point of reference when we're talking about the 8K modes in a camera the size of the R5. It's certainly something to keep in mind. It's a little bit smaller, hence the overheating issues.
Yeah, I mean, it is in a way, it's kind of probably, as much as I don't like saying that, it's managing the expectation. It's not the same size as a Cinema EOS camera, because we have all the cooling systems on the Cinema EOS cameras, but you see how big they are in comparison. So for looking at the size of the camera and what it's capable of doing, I still think it's great. Get in 20 minutes, continue shooting. I don't think it's massive that the fact that you stop in at 20 minutes. Looking at mirrorless cameras or stills cameras in general, when they shoot video, you have the limit anyway. So you are looking at 29 minutes, 59 seconds. So being able to record for 29 minutes, and we're talking 8K, I still think that is massive. And people shouldn't be worried about the overheating. I mean, there is an option in the camera for the overheating. It is enabled by default, but and what that does is it basically lowers the resolution of the display, because what I think we don't realize, even if the camera is sitting down, standby, not recording, it is still doing something. So there is still, the temperature is still increasing. If you have the camera in your hand, you're going through the menus, adjusting loads of things, or going through playing back videos, stills. The camera's temperature is going up. So because there is processing going on that obviously we're not paying attention to. So when you start recording, obviously the minute you start recording, you will get the time estimate on the screen. And as I said, it's melee. So in 8K, you're looking at about 20 minutes. If you're
Yep.
recording 4K high frame rate, because again, there is that limitation in stills cameras of 29 minutes, 59 seconds, shooting 4K at 120 frames, you get 7.5 minutes per clip, because 7.5 minutes recording is about half an hour when it comes to playback. So you can actually do 2 clips of that. So that's pretty much an hour of playback time, which again, it's great. When recording 4K 60, for example, without any crop, you will be getting roughly about 35 minutes, which is, so you will reach that limit of 29 minutes 59 seconds, and then you record another 5 minutes, maybe even longer, on top of that.
Yep.
If you're recording at the 4K crop, obviously you've got to remember that the 4K crop, you've got the oversampling, so the 5.1K. So 4K 60 in crop mode, you get 25 minutes. But if you record in 4K 30, the camera is not limited by the overheating. So once this basically limit at some point, because I said we've been told that it will be lifted at some point, once that's lifted, it shouldn't be an issue to record 4K 30. As long as you have a card, I guess, large enough, and the camera is powered from the mains, it shouldn't be an issue.
So to clarify, the 2 4K 30 or 4K 25 modes, or 24
8K, you mean?
that we've, 4K.
Oh, 4K.
The 2
okay.
modes, the HQ mode and then the normal mode that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The 4K HQ mode is going to overheat. The 4K normal mode is not.
No.
You're not going to see any people shooting anywhere around the world. It's going to be just the same as all the normal Canon cameras that we're used to. You're going to be able to use it without worrying about overheating, without even having to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you get, as I said, with the 4K HQ, you get in that 30 minutes, which I still think, to be honest, to be recording 30 minutes non-stop, it's already great. And we need to remember that the camera is oversampling from 8K. So there is a lot of processing actually going on. But yeah, 4K 30 with HQ disabled, as I said, as long as you have a card big enough, it won't be an issue.